Hello, Northlanders. It's Dan Williamson with a special edition of the Duluth News Tribune Minutes. On Thursday, September 14th, candidates looking to represent District 5 of the Duluth City Council took the stage at a forum organized by the Duluth Chamber of Commerce and the News Tribune. The following is the complete audio of that forum. We encourage you to check your podcast feed for audio for other forums we hosted this week to give you the information you need to make decisions at the ballot box that are right for you. And now, here's the audio.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. Many of you have been around all day. We appreciate it. This is our fifth of 5 forums over the last couple of days. Again, on behalf of the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber Foundation, and the Duluth News Tribune, we really appreciate you being here. We appreciate our candidates who we're going to hear from in just a moment. Again, just a reminder, these are being recorded by the Duluth News Tribune and will be posted on their website this afternoon. And speaking of the Duluth News Tribune, I will turn it over to Chuck with the DNT.
Thanks, Daniel. I'm Chuck Frederick, editorial page editor at the newspaper. Members of our editorial board are here as well. The purpose of the forums, as we've said, is to help voters make critical decisions this fall. These forums will also help to inform the newspaper's endorsements in the many races. Mention that this forum, like the others, is civility certified with the participation of the Speak Your Piece Civility Project. Our candidates in this forum are from District 5 in Western Duluth. And candidates, I'd like to point out Kathy here in front. She's our timekeeper, and she has signs that she'll hold up to let you know when you're running out of time and when your time is up. We'll allow 1.5 minutes for opening remarks and then 1 minute answers to questions. Any sorts of rebuttals will be at the discretion and direction of Daniel and myself. So with that, we will get right into it. We'll get started. And opening questions, opening remarks, chance to just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're running, and your goals or priorities for office. We'll begin with Councilor Janet Kennedy.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Daniel. Thank you to the Chamber and DNT, and thank you all for being here. My name is Janet Kennedy, and I am so honored and proud to be your president of the Duluth City Council. And I say that with a heart of heaviness, but I also say that in the way that I stand on the shoulders of many people who have come before me. And I like to say that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. So when I started running for office, I noticed that Western Duluth was not receiving the investments that we needed. And so I had built up my work, my experience, my ability, what I learned in school, and I knew that the education I had and the spirit that I had and the voice that I had that was recognized by community, I would be a great representative for the 5th District. Now, as a representative for the 5th District and as a city councilor, I make decisions across the city. So you have to know the city as well. We came here in the 60s. My dad came here for the air base. My mom served in our community. My family has served, and now I serve. It's not enough just to live here for a little bit of time. You have to know the whole city to be able to make decisions. My leadership is on values, leading, and making sure that I as the servant leader, will make a difference and will continue to make a difference when reelected.
Thank you. The challenger in Western Duluth District 5 is Ginka Tarnowski. Ginka?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ginka Tarnowski. You have to take your ginkgo to remember Ginka. I am running because Duluth must change how government does business as usual. I'm running because there's going to be a new mayor next year, and Roger needs a council willing to try something new. I want people in our district to be heard and served well. Right now, that is not happening. We deserve timely responses for everyone to be heard, not just supporters, and for the city services to be quick and effective. We can do better, and talking to many people in Western Duluth, I know that we need to do better.
Thank you both. And now we're going to jump into our questions. Being consistent with other city council candidates, we have 8 basic questions for you. And we're going to begin with the budget and taxes. And as you probably heard earlier, we've talked about LGA increase that the city has received. And again, the chamber's been proud to be part of advocating for that. And we know that's part of the solution. But also we see a proposed tax levy increase again this year. So going forward, should you be on the city council, how can you ensure that the city continues to be fiscally responsible and adequately provide services? For this one, we'll begin with Ginka.
Thank you. So our UDC, so we can get more housing and also more businesses. We need to address that property taxes have gone up and people on a fixed income are worried about being able to afford their taxes. That's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on spending our money responsibly, and we need to focus on how our services are used with our property taxes. I've talked to a lot of people. They're upset that they don't see much going on in the city of Duluth, but the property taxes keep going up. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet?
Oh, I was waiting for you to hand me the mic. Sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Talking about budgets and overall tax increases, knowing that we have an increase with LGA, but we still see a property tax levy increase. Going forward, how can the city of Duluth be fiscally responsible and still adequately provide services?
Thank you for that. We are so lucky this year that next year, and all of the work that we've been doing over the last few years, we will see an increase in LGA. And I know y'all have seen that 2% raise in the levy of property taxes this year, which could have been much higher had we not done the work. Part of doing the work is understanding the community, understanding how to build collaborations, and understanding what it takes to build strategies and solutions that are going to work. So I'm really proud of being able to do that over the last few years as I've served as a city councilor. So the responsibility of the levy is on the council. There are many ways that we can make the changes in that. We are fiscally responsible to our property taxpayers. Nobody wants to raise taxes, but if we want better services, sometimes that's what you need to do. But we've been able to hold that line. Last year, I was one of the only councilors who proposed a levy that did not cut any services, but still continued to lower the levy overall. So I'm able to build solutions. I understand how to build solutions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both. Our next question is about potholes and infrastructure. I'm sure you've both heard a lot about that topic when you've been outdoor knocking. How can the city do a better job of repairing more streets, and how can we get to a point where people don't feel the need to complain so much about it? Janet Kennedy, we'll start with you.
That's a great question. Here's the beautiful thing. We can't control Mother Nature, but we live in a beautiful place, and right, we've all chosen to live here. That doesn't mean that we should have to deal with the roads the way they are, but we need to make sure we're creating solutions. One of the things I keep thinking about, and a strategy is as our weather changes, and we know that climate is changing, how are we bringing in services and funding from the feds or the states? Because when we get a larger amount of snowfall like we did last year, over the amount we've ever had, is it really just snowfall, or is it climate change where we can really bring in some funding? And or looking at, can we bring in some of our local services to help with plowing our roads or plowing our sidewalks, because we are impacted and we're more impacted than before. So there are a lot of solutions. There's some funds that we have right now that we'll be putting towards that and some pilot programs. So again, I've been part of that conversation and look forward to continuing that work.
Thank you. Ginka Tarnowski.
Okay, so yeah, potholes are an issue, especially when we cold patch potholes but don't actually pack them down. And then when the plows come during the winter, it just ruins everything and makes it worse. But we also need to look at what's underneath. The surface is important, also the pipes underneath. It's 100-year-old pipes. We have lead poisoning. We need to make sure that we take care of Duluthians and check how severe the lead poisoning is in our city. And making sure that we don't have water main breaks and just replacing pipes. Thank you.
Thank you both.
For question 3, we're going to talk about parks and recreation and funding. As you likely know, last year on the ballot there was a referendum about funding parks that did not pass. So with that in mind, how can the city best address parks maintenance and improvement and be able to afford that? For this one, we will start with Ginka.
So the parks referendum wasn't really about parks, but more of a referendum on the mayor and her lack of leadership. A lot of people don't feel like she is doing a good job with spending our money. And it's really unfortunate because there are a lot of constituents that I've talked to about parks and about how they want to have like Norton Park open again, but it's unable to because of the city saying that they can't do it. People are like willing to volunteer, and so we need to have people that in a representative government feel like they can be trusted, and that's me.
Thank you. Janet?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So knowing that the parks referendum did not pass last year, how do we go forward with the parks maintenance that's required, and how do we pay for that?
So paying for parks, and as well as paying for any of our core services, is something that we need to do for all of our constituents. I think of the city of Duluth as like a big house, right? You have to pay for utilities, you have to pay to mow your lawn, you have to pay for all of that stuff. We need to make sure we're currently or actively and working well enough to be able to pay for all of that. Currently, with parks, we have a move that something that we're voting on recently on the half and half tax, as well as increasing funding for the athletic centers. So if you want to talk, I can talk about the referendum. I believe that was just moved a little bit too quickly. I believe it's a value of our community, and I've heard that from all community members across our city. We just need to make sure we're educating people about where that funding is going if we have another referendum. I still think that we need to make sure we have more economic development, and we need to bring community centers to our communities. But right now we have a plan, as I stated, and I'm still going to be working on that and look forward to it next year.
Thank you both.
Thanks. Whether fair or accurate or not, Duluth has long had the reputation for being a difficult place to do business. What can the city do better to support local businesses, and how can the city do a better job of encouraging economic development? Janet Kennedy, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So we recently hired a new economic developer director. I'm not sure if that's the right term. And this person has been steeped in our community, understands our community, and understands how to do this work. I've also myself was just trained with Urban Land Institute on the Real Estate Diversity Initiative, which gave me a good idea of how to do a pro forma, making sure you have the strategies and solutions for building what we need to see in our community. So economic development, the Baker-Tilly study is really, really important. One of the things we know is important when we do studies like that to make sure we build the solutions and strategies around that. Working on the comprehensive plan, I know exactly how that works. I was on that and built that plan and look forward to continuing to do the work of economic development. One important thing I want to say is Western Duluth is really starting to build out our economic development. Small businesses are really important, and gaining more larger businesses is one of the things I want to continue to do.
Thank you. Ginka, on supporting local business and encouraging economic development.
Well, the simple answer is I support local businesses a lot, but just like Tara Swanson said, the perception is reality. So many people in Duluth or builders refuse to build in Duluth because of all the red tape, the process, how they talk to their representatives to try to get help and they don't get the help that they need, or they get the wrong answer, and then they have to pay more money for their business that they're trying to start. It's unfortunate. We need to fix that. We need to modernize the UDC.
Thank you. Question 5 will be about homelessness and affordable housing. As you heard me say earlier, we recently did a survey of citizens, and this was the top response when we asked people what their top priorities and concerns were in this community. So this question is essentially, how can we as a city continue to address this issue of affordable housing, homelessness encampments that we continue to hear about? Should you be on the city council, how would you bring, what strategies would you bring, and what solutions would you bring? And Ginka, we'll start with you again.
Okay, so I'm going to say the same thing. We need to modernize the UDC code and making sure that people can build what they want to build on their property. And then I want to talk about just how when rents go up, homelessness goes up. So we need to focus on making sure that we have, again, more places to live, more apartments, more housing. I know a lot of people have been talking about mental health and drug issues with the homeless population, but to be honest, when you become homeless because maybe a big life event happened, you go down that rabbit hole of desperation and need to find coping skills, and sometimes they're not healthy. So we need to address how do we make that healthy? How do we make sure people are safe? Thank you.
Thank you. And Janet?
Thank you. Affordable housing, I know there are folks out there that know a lot more about this than I do. I don't build affordable housing. I do build investments in community, and community impact development is about it all. So what we need to do for affordable housing is some of the work we've already done. We've brought more money in from the state for affordable housing. We've created a housing trust fund, and I was one of the co-authors of the housing trust fund. We have more money now, and we're doing the work, and we're continuing to move forward. As far as unhoused folks, there has been an issue across our country. It's not just in Duluth. I've been really having conversations intergovernmentally about how we're working because it is a social issue. The City of Duluth is not a social health and human services we do policies around that. We don't pay for that, so it's important to be intergovernmental. One great program that's coming out with different strategies is a Stepping On Up, and I just met with some folks yesterday at Our Savior's Church, so there'll be more about that coming out, but we're already supporting that in the budget, and I'll continue to support that.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move to the next question, Ginka's asked for just a little bit more time on housing and homelessness, so I'm happy to offer each of the candidates one more minute. Ginka?
So one of the things that kind of grinds my gears is when people say we need more affordable housing. We have gotten affordable housing by getting the Fairmount cottages, which are, $190,000 or $200,000? That's not affordable. Not for me, and not for a lot of other Duluthians. When we do have affordable housing, like the HRA, they have a delisting for building. That's not acceptable. People who are poor, like me, deserve to have adequate housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy, a final word on housing and homelessness?
So HRA is a great program, and they bring in great housing. It actually is their own taxing district and bring in money from the state, and we support that as a city. The cottages that were just built are 50 to 100% AMI. I had a member in our community ask if they can apply there. They work actually in the city of Duluth. They applied just the other day for her and her mom to live in those cottages. So I'm not sure where the math is coming from. I would just encourage folks to really reach out to Jill Keppers to really understand what that means when it's affordable. Affordable housing is used over a lot of spectrum. It can be low affordable housing, deeply affordable housing. It can be workforce affordable housing. It can be housing for folks who maybe are even above the range that's not considered low income. So we need all of that housing. And I'm not sure that it's in my purview as a counselor to say that any affordable housing is not good enough. I'm a little perplexed, so I'll yield.
People deserve to have good housing.
Excuse me, does a rebuttal happen?
Thank you both very much. Our next topic is downtown, which, as you both know, is far different now than it was before the pandemic. Considering the many empty offices, empty storefronts, fewer people, needles on the ground, other signs of drug use, what is your vision for our downtown, and how can we get there? How can we achieve that vision? Janet Kennedy, we'll start with you.
So I've been excited to watch and hear and not always be in the room because I'm not in every room. And as a counselor, you're not in every room and you're not in every conversation. And there's no way that you can talk to every person. We have 17,000 people in the district. I have 4 at-large counselors, and we do the work together. And so downtown needs to be changed. The understanding of how downtown works is different. You already heard that from somebody earlier. So we need to look at that model. Part of that model I can see is building more multi-use housing. Like I had stated, I went through a program in understanding how to build that. So multi-use, more housing down there, thinking of the neighborhoods along with downtown as a node. So Western Duluth becomes its own sort of node where it has its own infrastructure, has its own affordable housing, and has its own stores and all of those things. So then we don't just think about downtown as the only place where people can go, where business can go, where housing can go, and where people can live. It's got to be all of the neighborhoods, otherwise it's not going to work. Our model's old, and so I look forward to changing that a little bit more and moving that forward.
Thank you. Ginka?
So I'm going to talk about downtown Spirit Valley because that doesn't get as talked about. I know it's not downtown Spirit Valley, but we need to talk about how I'm running for City Council 5th District. Spirit Valley is in the 5th District. There are so many things that can be changed in West Duluth, and we can grow West Duluth. There's so much promise for West Duluth, and that includes making sure that we get more businesses in West Duluth. We have Kmart that's just empty. It's been empty for a while now. We need to fix that.
Thank you both.
President Kennedy has asked for a rebuttal for that one. Since we have time, you'll each get 1 more minute to address housing.
Around the housing, again, is the economic development, and I will speak to Spirit Valley. That is a place where I've lived, where my kids have grown up, where I was a single mom, where I now care for my mom who has dementia. I'm a homeowner who came from poverty, and I understand how to do the work. I also am a business owner, and I run a nonprofit there. I'm investing in there. I am invested in West Duluth, and we've had more investments in the last 4 years than we've had in the last 12 years. And that's the work I'm going to continue, and that's the work that I know that I can continue to do. So yes, I already said that we have to have more community nodes. While I didn't say Spirit Valley specifically, that is Spirit Valley. That is the eastern side of Duluth, and that's the upper side of Duluth. Again, it's not enough to just have a node of downtown. We need to spread that economic development, that affordable housing. That's what community impact is, and so the model is not right. I get that, but we're going to make it work, and Western Duluth is open for business.
Can you get 60 seconds as well for downtown or housing?
Okay, so I'm just going to say it again. We just need to modernize the UDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Just expanding on that from the downtown district to talk about wider city and overall public safety. That's another issue that's come up repeatedly in our public survey. Continues to be some concern. Again, some of that's perception, some of that's reality. We have seen some crime statistics go down, while we have seen some go up as well. Just on the city council, how can we best address public safety and crime, especially around violent crime and gun violence? Ginka?
We need to hire more cops, but that means that we need to make sure that they get adequate pay and they don't just start their job here, their career here, and then leave for a higher paying job. I think that's why we don't have the same amount of cops. I know Emily Larson talked about how she just hired 6 new cops. It's kind of convenient when there's an election coming up. This should have been addressed a while ago because it's nice to know that we can, when cops are fully staffed, that they can walk a beat and get to know the neighborhoods instead of just being in their cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet?
Public safety is one of the most important things to having a healthy community. When you activate your community, it's a lot safer. So I believe public safety is about police and fire, which I do hold the endorsement, but it's also about building a community that's activated. Once your community is activated, it's a lot safer. So I'll go back to the police and fire. They are our essential workers. They are our frontline workers. Those are the people we call, and that when they go there, that's the person's worst part of their life. And they're on the front lines, and I want to support both of those. we need to really look at the health and human services and supporting them in that way, but also making sure we have the wages that are going to be competitive. We've already worked to increase the police wage. We worked to increase the training for fire. We're looking at a proposal to increase the wages for fire. We know what the work that needs to be done. We've understood that for the last 4 years and even councils before me. It's now the time that we're able to actually enact some of those strategies and policies. And a lot of that comes around, do you have the right people at the table? And we have to find that money.
Did you want to? So we have time. We have 60 seconds for each for you for rebuttal.
We need to spend our money wisely. We are not doing that, and that is why we don't see an increase in pay for fire and police. Thank you.
Janet?
Again, so we increased the police wages just a couple of years ago, and we increased the training budget for the fire department, which is really important for them all to be able to come home safe. We are currently looking at increasing the fire budget. With the LGA, that's helpful. The reality is our piggy bank had been held up at the state for I don't know how many years. We're just getting that back. And so we've built in those solutions. We're having the conversation as counselors. I know that Mayor Larson and the staff are really, really working hard. We understand that when we are fully staffed and they're feeling fully valued, whether it be wage or whether or not, we get the best bang for our buck and community members are safer. So there is a plan. If you understand strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. I come from a nonprofit world, I come from a business world. It takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight, and we've got to make sure we have the right strategy and the right solution because we don't want to get it wrong.
Great. Thank you both.
Thanks. Dan, I'm going to ask 2 questions. First one, I want to ask, you've brought up the UDC, the city code, several times now. Ginka, I'd like to ask you, what specific changes do you feel are needed in order to modernize it? And Councilor Kennedy, when it's your turn, do you agree that the UDC needs to be modernized and changed? Ginka, just 60 seconds with no rebuttals. Just what sorts of changes are you referring to that you feel are necessary to modernize the city code?
I think we need to just get rid of the process that we have right now with the city code, with the UDC. The process is way too long. A lot of these houses in Duluth have been grandfathered in, and if it's good enough to be grandfathered in, it's good enough to be built again. There are some silly rules of like setbacks being next to each other too closely, and there are a lot of BS reasons behind it. But again, if it's good enough to grandfather in, it's good enough to build again. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Kennedy, do you agree that the UDC needs modernizing and updating and changes?
So that's a living document, so yes, it has to be. It can't be static. We just went through a comprehensive plan where we changed everything. We also added a vision for health and fairness in the principles. And so we really did a lot of work in understanding how it's impacting people. Now, the other side of that is we do need to make sure we're understanding when we're making changes how it's impacting developers. And part of the conversation that we've all heard is that it's hard to build here. So we need to really dig in with developers. We need to dig in with our partners. We need to dig in with our unions and our laborers to figure out what that means. I recently was on a nonprofit that built a net zero carbon house up on Harborview, Harbor Highlands, and a nonprofit in understanding how that work moves forward. So building and also being in the Urban Land Institute, it's a lot of work. Again, there are processes and policies. I know it gets frustrating, but they're there for a reason, because before there weren't any of those and people's health and other things were impacted, and there's more risks if we don't follow a strategy and solution.
Thank you very much. My other question has to do with the difficulty many Duluth families are finding lining up care for their children, childcare, daycare. It's become a workforce issue. There's employers who are having a hard time recruiting and finding and filling jobs with qualified candidates because of this difficulty in finding childcare in Duluth. What more could the City Council be doing to ensure that childcare options here are both readily available and affordable? Councilor Kennedy, will begin with you.
Thank you. I'm so used to being called president, but I forgive you. And I get to do that for 2 more months, so please use it, because after that it won't be there. So yes, childcare, workforce, they all go hand in hand. And I've heard a lot of that over the last 4 years since I've been on the council, or 3.5 years. Also, as a young mom, a single mom, childcare was really pivotal in me being able to get off of poverty and not be on welfare and break that bond of poverty for my family. Childcare was one of the things that was really impacted that. So right now I'm working in Spirit Valley on the Spirit Valley Center for Youth and Community Wellness, which is a community impact project that has daycare. We also have some strategies within the city of Duluth. We have a lot of folks working on childcare. I know the chamber's working on it. We have nonprofits working on it. The thing is we need to make sure that childcare providers and childcare facilities are valued as much as we value them at the state and at the federal level. So that's work that we can do to leverage as city councilors, and I've already been doing that work and look forward to doing it some more.
Thank you. Ginka Tarnowski.
So I was a latchkey kid, and there needs to be more programs in the city of Duluth to house children for a small amount of time after school. And I think that it's good that we are starting to do some stuff, but again, we weren't focusing with the bonding bill, and we pushed the Spirit Valley Youth Center into the next bonding bill for 2024. And so it just kind of shows that we can say that we worry about it, but we aren't doing much to fix that issue. Again, we need to make sure that when we talk to people like daycare providers and preschool and after-school programs, how can we help? Thank you.
Thank you.
Since time allows and President Kennedy just asked for a rebuttal, we're going to give 60 seconds from our candidates, and just specifically to child care and businesses, just if I could, just to direct the conversation, because we hear this a lot at the chamber. This is a workforce issue with child care in particular. So you've got 60 seconds to use as you want to, but as you're able to, if you can tie it into child care and how that affects businesses and the workforce.
So again, looking at community impact development, and specifically in Western Duluth, specifically for childcare, specifically on making sure we have birth to 12th grade, and looking at childcare in a way that it's not just 9 to 5. That work has been done. And again, if understanding strategies and policies and building solutions, it takes time. And especially when you're building a building and building new programming, you don't always get what you want the first time you ask. Sometimes you have to back up and wait because it just doesn't happen right away. And understanding that is really important because we don't have time to go back right now. We need to continue moving forward because economic development, childcare, those are our next workers. That's our next workforce. Families need it, communities need it, we need it across our city. Again, I cannot stress any stronger than this. We do not have time to move back. That's why I'm continuing to run for office, and that's why I'm hoping to be elected.
Thank you. And Ginka?
So, again, the bonding bill was in 2024. It was supposed to be in the previous bonding bill for the Spirit Valley Youth Center. So I'm just wondering why you decided not to put that in there.
We're just going to ask that all questions come from either Chuck or I,
Yep.
please.
It was more rhetorical, sorry. But it's that kind of stuff where we say what we want to do, but we don't actually do what we need to do to help Duluthians. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our 8 formal questions. Both candidates will have an opportunity to provide closing remarks as well. Before we do that, I just want to remind folks that Election Day is November 7th. Early voting begins on September 22nd, just around the corner. We really appreciate you all being here today. We appreciate our candidates. And again, if we could help close with 1 minute closing remarks, we will begin with President Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming here today. So as a public service official running for re-election as your city council president, it's clear that you know and you have heard that I have the understanding to continue moving forward policies, practices, procedures that actually work for our Western Duluth community, but across our city. Again, when you're a counselor for the whole city, not just one neighborhood, not just a couple people. And so I will continue to lead with my values. I will continue to lead as a servant leader in leadership and making sure we're getting what we need across our city and especially in Western Duluth. I've recently had conversations at the business district, and people said to me, it's not time to change because we can't go back. We need to continue moving forward along with the community. Community impact development starts with community, and I've been there and will continue to be there and continue listening to the voices, asking the right questions, finding the solutions, and if I can't find them, actually being honest about I can't do that. So I'm looking forward to being re-elected, and I'd love your support November 7th.
Thank you. Ginka?
All right, so again, my name is Ginka Tarnowski. I really want to run for city council. Well, I am running, but I want to be a city councilor because I want to take the time to knock on people's doors, talk about the issues, and fix it. It should not take 4 years to learn how to run the city council. It shouldn't. That's all.
All right. Thank you both. This concludes our formal portion of the program. Again, you're welcome to stick around. We've got some treats too. Feel free to take a cookie for the road. This is our last forum today. I appreciate you all being here. Again, appreciate the partnership with the Duluth News Tribune. Our staff at the Chamber, thank you for your help in getting this organized and promoted. Thank you all for being here. And if you could please join me in a round of applause for thanking our candidates for taking the time to be here. We appreciate you.